Hi there, welcome to Snacks and Stacks, and I like to talk about books, TV shows, and movies. Today we're going to talk about 10 books outside my norm. I do pick up classic and nonfiction books from time to time, but I've noticed that usually throughout the year, by the end of the year, I definitely forget about them. And so since I typically read fantasy and contemporary romance, I thought this kind of assigning a book a month will help me read a little bit more rounded out. And so even though I believe in reading diversely throughout the whole year, I am going to use certain like heritage months or month things to help base the book that I'm going to pick. These are picked because they're either on my shelf or because I have an interest in them. And so let's get started. For February, I want to read Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. First of all, it goes hand in hand with Black History Month, as Octavia Butler is a Black author. It was first published in 1993, and this is a sci-fi dystopian that takes place in an alternate 2020s, so I definitely want to read it in the 2020s, where there is a global climate change, economic crisis, and social chaos. Ironic. We follow a hyper-empathetic 15-year-old named Lauren who lives in a secure community and wants to use her voice to protect her loved ones. I am looking at my notes over here because I just need them for this video. This is where I'll be starting my Octavia Butler journey, and I'm excited to see what it's about. So I initially picked out all these books before January. Like I picked them out at the end of last year. And now with the way January has turned out with all of the things happening in the United States and Minnesota and in the news, I feel like this might be a little bit of a hard book to swallow, but it does say that it's a wonderful story of hope and faith back here. So maybe it will give me a sense of hope that I am looking for in the way society has been lately. So this is where I'm going to start off. I'll probably start it this week. And I'm hoping to be able to annotate this and use this for my anti-brain rot challenge as well. Okay, so for March, in honor of Women's History Month, I want to read about Henrietta Lacks. This was a previous book that was like on a book club. I found it really hard to get into. I think I was just getting back into reading at that time, and nonfiction has always been hard for me, but I keep hearing about it. I know it'll make me a little mad, but I do think it'll be an important book to read this year. And yeah, it's about a woman's cells that were taken without her knowledge and the scientific achievements that came from them. HeLa cells were vital for developing the polio vaccine, uncovered secrets of cancer, viruses, and the atom bomb's effects. It helped lead to important advances like in vitro fertilization, cloning, and gene mapping, and have bought and sold by the billions. And so it's a very controversial topic, especially in medicine. It's often cites that there's some feminine rage in here because it's about a woman who basically was poor and most likely being taken advantage of. So I do think it's an important book, and it will probably make me quite mad. But I had seen this, I think, at a library sale. So I was like, I think this is meant to be. So I picked it up. Hopefully in this type of format, I will be able to read it within the month of March. April is where I'm giving myself a little bit of a break. It is National Poetry Month, and I have bought this little book of poetry, and I've flipped through it, but I haven't really taken the time to read it. And it's one of my, I feel like, prettiest poetry books. It's Emily Dickinson's Envelope Poems, and I just really want to read it. I think it also works with it being a classic since it's Emily Dickinson, and if I get through this and all the previous two books, I have written down that I would like to also read Shakespeare's sonnets. Shakespeare was something I enjoyed when I was in school, but definitely because there was a whole class to help you like understand what the story was about. And one of the writings of Shakespeare that I have always wanted to read are the sonnets. So I have that written down that if I can get to it, I would like to try reading Shakespeare sonnets as well. And now May. So I wrote, it's a stretch, but it could be in honor of National Pet Month. But I found this book near the end of last year at a bookstore. And I was like, why have I never read this before? It's called In a Men's World by Yong. It is about animals. I love animals. It's supposed to place us in the shoes of animals, which is something that I think I would thoroughly enjoy. It's about how they experience our world. This is a book that I find a little bit intimidating because it's quite thick, and I think that sometimes I worry that like scientific stuff gets over my head. But I love animals. I absolutely love knowing more about them. Yeah, so I just feel like this will be a fun book. In June is a book I don't have yet because I haven't found one where I like the cover. But I read a James Baldwin book last year called The Fire Next Time, and I really enjoyed that. And this year I want to read him again. And in honor of Pride Month, I want to read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. It is set in Paris, and an American man comes to terms with his sexuality. Written in the 1950s, this was quite controversial as it talks about homosexuality, bisexuality, and homophobia. In July, if you couldn't tell, I've been alternating classic and then nonfiction. So in July, my nonfiction book will be One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar Akkad. I am sure this will be a difficult read, but this is something that I have seen, and the cover absolutely strikes me. The title absolutely strikes me. It's a story about an immigrant from the West and how this promise of freedom and what has actually happened. So I'm going to read this tweet, and this is part of why I really wanted to read it. On October 25th, 2023, after just 3 weeks of the bombardment of Gaza, Omar Akkad put out a tweet. One day, when it is safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it is too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this. It reminds me a lot about what is happening all over the world, but specifically what's happening right now in Palestine, in the US, and in Sudan. There's just so much that we don't understand because we live in our little bubbles and we do our day-to-day lives. One of the things that I remember thinking about when I was sitting in history class was, how did people let these things happen? Why do we put in place things like checks and balances, and yet somehow we still allow so much to happen in the world, in our country? Where is the sense of justice, and why is it not prevalent? And I think as an adult now, I realize it's because we live our everyday lives as best we can, right? We all struggle with things, and like we're all doing things just to try to get to the next day. So sometimes it's just so much to have to learn more about what's going on outside of our four walls. And for me, reading this book is a way for me to reach outside the four walls, to understand more about what's happening, to understand where other people are coming from, and in turn then make my own decisions about things that are happening in the world. So that's why I think it's important to pick up certain books like this, even though it will be probably a very hard read. For August, I want to read this little guy that has been on my shelf. It's called Brave New World. I don't know too much about it. I know it's a dystopian classic, and it was published in 1932. I wrote that when I look up the plot, I find myself a bit confused. But I do know it's something that is satire, and I've been wanting to read it, which is why I picked it up from the used bookstore. It was $3. So, I mean, I definitely want to read it. It's something that I think I will have to sit with and try to understand. But Brave New World. And back to a nonfiction. I originally had something else in here, but with everything that's happened in January with Venezuela, and also one of my work friends is from Venezuela and having some conversations with her, and just trying to understand more about the Latino community and just everything. I felt like in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, which starts September 15th to October 15th. And I've recently started watching Paola Ramos, a journalist on Instagram. And I just really love the way she explains some of the things that is happening in the news right now. And so I want to pick up her book that is called Defectors, The Rise of the Latino Far Right and What It Means for America. It deals with the political landscape in America, as well as, I think, showing us an understanding to why the Latino community is influenced by the conservative party. It's kind of funny because in our household, my husband and I are a little bit divided politically sometimes, depending on some of the laws and some of the way things goes. But I think morally we're on like the same page. So it's always interesting because I would sometimes be like, what's your side saying about this thing that happened? And we don't mean it in a way like my side versus your side, because at the end of the day, like I said, morally, my husband and I are on the same page. It's just like he follows different channels, and I'm always curious to see what he's hearing versus what I'm hearing versus what a more biased news source will be saying. I find it very interesting to try to hear both sides, and part of that means understanding why this group of people is voting for the other side, or voting for the conservative side, I should say. So Ramos shows how tribalism, traditionalism, and political trauma within the Latino community has been weaponized to radicalize and convert voters who, like many of their white counterparts, are fearful of losing their place in American society. And I think because I already like the way her voice is online, I think reading something written by her will be interesting and easy for me to read. So in October, I have this chunker called Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. It's another classic that I own. It's set in Italy during World War II. It's supposed to be funny as it follows a man who has found himself in quite a catch-22, a man considered insane if he willingly continues to fly dangerous combat missions, but if he makes a formal request to be removed from duty, he is proven sane and therefore ineligible to be relieved. I never got to read this in school, and I hear about it all the time. So, not all the time. I do hear about it. We obviously say the words Catch-22, so I would like to know more about it. And you might be wondering why I even have a bunch of classics. It's because at one point I printed out this list of 100 books that need to be read or something like that. And a lot of them had classics on there. And I was determined to finish this list within the next, I think I was thinking like 3 to 5 years. But every time I tried to pick up a book from that list, from the library or something, I would like listen to it and then get distracted. So I've had kind of a hard time going through that list, but I did pick up a bunch of books that happened to be on that list, and that's why they are on this list as well. And then November, I can't believe I'm waiting until near the end of the year to read this because World of Wonders is one of my favorite books of 2025, but Bite by Bite by Aimee Nezhukumatathil. I'm going to figure out how to say her last name. World of Wonders is one of my favorite books of 2025, and this one is in a similar style where they're essays, but they have to do with food, which the probably only thing I love more than animals is food, which is kind of funny, I guess, if you think about it. I definitely like food more as I am not a vegetarian or a vegan. Yes, so I am very, very excited to read more from her. I'm sad to wait for November to start this, but I figured it kind of works with the Thanksgiving holiday as it is another holiday that is based a lot on the celebration of food. And so I am so excited. This one is thicker than, or more pages than World of Wonders, so I do think that it might take me a little bit longer as I love just reading one essay at a time. Oh, we're starting with Rambutan, which I haven't had in forever. So I am, very excited to end my year with this. And those are my 10 books outside my norm that I would like to get to this year, 1 month at a time. I hope that this might have inspired you to pick up a book or two that you don't normally pick up. And maybe it's a book that, like me, you have bought at a used bookstore and it's just been sitting there, but you've been a little bit scared to approach it because, you know, it's not usually what you read. So maybe you'll try it one of these months. If you'd like to try along with me, I will be hopefully posting a book review about each of these once I'm done, since it's in like a special little thing. I'm not sure if I will post a short or a more full video like this. If you have a preference, you know, let me know, because I don't know until you let me know. So happy reading, happy snacking, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.